Hello, everyone. Today I'm gonna do my third review prediction for the season, my season preview of the Los Angeles Kings. Um, so this is a very unpredictable lineup. They were terrible through most of last season, but they ended off hot. Where if the season went on longer, I'm not sure how much longer. They probably could have gotten into a playoff spot over Chicago, I think, in the play-ins. They were already too far gone to make the actual playoffs, but who knows what could have happened with them for the for the play-ins. But looking at their lineup, it is a very unpredictable lineup. As you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 possible rookies listed, which I have a feeling is going to be by far the most of any team that I'm going to talk about in this series. And I mean, we could start off with the top five. The top five is not, there are no rookies in it. I didn't put any rookies in it. I kind of try to avoid it unless if it's like a guarantee that this rookie will be a top five player. Your top three forwards, I put Kopitar, Kempe, which is debatable, and Iafallo. And for the defense, I put Drew Doughty and Alimata. Kopitar had a phenomenal year last year. He is on the downslope of his career, though, and it's obvious when you're watching him. But he still has gas left in the tank. He's still a high-end point scoring forward, and if the team can go on a run within the next couple years before his time is done in LA, then that would be fantastic. And Kopitar would be a huge reason why that team can go on a run, and their current captain, and he's still playing well. Kempe and Iafallo are young, top six forwards, um, and they excel at that role. You can argue that either Carter or Brown should be there instead of Kempe, but I gave the edge to Kempe strictly because of age. Um, but overall, Kempe and Iafallo are both solid top six forwards. Drew Doughty is clearly on a downslope of his career, overrated by some, but because of the people that overrate Doughty, there's a lot of people that underrate him too. Um, Perfect example of him being overrated. In NHL 21, his overall was way too high. It's like they feel like that is still 3 years ago. But he's still a very good defenseman. He's not elite anymore. He's fringing elite though. And Ali Mat is honestly not good for your top 2D. Um, which defense is a big reason why they've been struggling, and also depth is a problem too, and goaltending. But but then after that, going on to the bottom five, I had to take guesses here on who's gonna be in the lineup, um, which is kind of tough considering how many possible rookies there are. But my lineup actually has, oddly enough, three Andersons, um, which are so on forward you have Lias Anderson, Wagner, Jay Anderson Dolan, Walker, and Mikey Anderson. Lias Anderson I watched play with the Rangers, and he never lived up to that hype, but he was a very solid two-way forward is my thing. He reminded me a lot of Derek Stepan in his time in New York, and that's what I expected from him from the time we drafted him. I never really liked the pick, and there were a lot of better players that we could have taken at 7. I understand why the Rangers traded for that pick though, because they wanted Elias Pettersson, but he got taken 2 picks earlier, and it was just unfortunate for them. Like imagine the Rangers if they had Elias Pettersson instead, they wouldn't have this problem at trying to fill the number 2 center gap. Elias Anderson can be a serviceable fourth line forward, I think, if used correctly. They can't expect him to be a big goal scorer. They can't expect him to put up points. Wagner, I don't really watch him that much, but from what I have seen, serviceable bottom line forward. Not don't expect much more than a fourth liner from him. Anderson Dolan, he's been very good in the minors and probably going to take a spot in the NHL this year, but again, there's so many possible rookies that if he ended up spending another year in the minors and a different rookie came up, it wouldn't be a surprise to me at all. Walker, he's not that good. I don't know if I would want him on my bottom pairing day. Number 70 is probably ideal for him. But he's okay there. And then Mikey Anderson, again, one of those rookies that looks good, but there's so many rookies that could take that spot from him. So I don't know if he'll make the lineup or not. It's just so hard to tell. Moving on, though, to the tandem. I have Cal Petersen as the starter with Jonathan Quick backing him up. Cal Petersen did phenomenal last season when he finally got his call up after they traded Campbell to Toronto. And I do think that the plan is Petersen is their future. Cal Petersen is their starter from now on, and Jonathan Quick will be a very good backup. And for the most part, I feel like that will be a kind of even split with a slight edge to Cal Petersen in the regular season. But if Quick was the starter, it depends what Jonathan Quick you get. First half of the season last year, Jonathan Quick was terrible. Second half of the season last year, Jonathan Quick was phenomenal. But Quick was phenomenal when he was finally put in a backup role behind Cal Petersen. So maybe Quick is a perfect example of a goalie that needs to be a backup to succeed, like Jake Allen, who's known as one of the best backups right now, but a few seasons ago was a terrible starter. Going on to your notable players who didn't make the top 5, I have Dustin Brown, Jeff Carter, Gabe Vilardi, Andreas Athanasiou, Quinton Byfield, and Martin Frk. Dustin Brown, he's on the downslope. Brown and Carter, I can pretty much lump together. They're on the downslope of their career, and they're still top 6 forwards, but I believe Brown is the one on the top line. It might be Carter, I'm not sure. He shouldn't be there. They did fine last year with Iafallo and Kopitar, but ideally you want someone else, especially someone younger. And having them on your top line is not that good. Top 6 is okay, but these are players that if they look like they're not going to make the playoffs, keep an eye out for them to be traded at the deadline. Then going on to Gabe Vilardi and Quinton Byfield, I'll talk about rookies. Vilardi is almost a guarantee to make the lineup. Byfield, I'm not too sure about. I've seen different sources, some of them saying he'll be a top 6 forward, some of them saying third liner, some of them saying he's not on the line. The one consensus, though, if he's going to be a fourth liner, you don't play him. And Vilardi, he had a 10-game stint in the NHL last year, put up 7 points. He looked phenomenal. He'll probably be their second-line center, which is a big reason why there's the question mark around Byfield. Because if your top 2 centers are Kopitar and Vilardi, do you want Byfield playing in a bottom 6 role? Or do you want him to spend some time in the minors or whatever league he'll play in and get actual ice time to eventually, when Kopitar leaves, become that top 6 forward? But Vilardi, I think they have a really good season, and if Byfield plays, I expect a pretty good season from him too. I don't expect a season like a Lafreniere or Kaprizov, but he should be very good, I think. And Andreas Athanasiou, he had a terrible year last year, playing in Detroit and Edmonton, but before that he was very good. And to say that he's not a good player anymore is a little fast, I think. Especially because most of his bad play was in Detroit, where the only good players that you can really say that they had was Larkin and Mantha. And I would argue Bernier, but that's debatable. And, but even if you do say Bernier, that's a goalie. And that's not going to help Athanasiou. And I really think that was a very good pickup by LA to sign Athanasiou. And he's a player that maybe if he exceeds expectations, he can push down a Carter or a Brown and get into that top 6 if he goes back to the Athanasiou from 2-3 years ago. And then Martin Frk I have on there. I think that he spent a little bit of time in the top 6 last year playing with Kempe and Velarde, and he did really well. He got his call up after he won the hardest shot competition in the AHL All-Star game, shattering the record, and I think he even broke the NHL record with his shot. And if you want someone that can fire pucks, you got to have him. And I think he'll get a lot of power play time, especially on the point. But I don't think he'll be a top 6 forward. But it'll be very interesting to see what they do with Martin Frk. Now, the possible rookies, it'll take forever to go through all of them, so I'll kind of try to lump a few together. So I already talked about Velarde, and I already talked about Byfield, and I already talked about Lias Andersson. Grundstrom, he played in the top 6 last year with Velarde when he got called up, and he looked good. He didn't look like Velarde, where he's a star scorer, but he looked very good. And if you want to look at someone that can knock down either Brown or Carter, that's where I would look. And I kind of feel like that's their plan this season. And have a third line with one of them playing with Frk and someone at center. But Grundstrom, I think, be very good for them in the future. Is he a top 6 forward yet? I'm not sure. But they're still rebuilding, and having someone that should probably be ideally a third liner on your second line that's young might not be the worst idea, so that they can develop better and play against that better talent. Anderson Dolan I talked about already a little bit, and Mikey Anderson I talked about a little bit, and Cal Peterson I already talked about him, but going into his rookie year looked very good, and I'm expecting big things from him this year. So there's also Wah, who's expected to make the lineup on defense, along with Bjorn Foote, which, here's a problem, though. The lineup looks a lot better from last year, and it looks like a lineup that, if all the stars align and all the rookies play as expected, that they could be a playoff team. But you're relying a lot on anywhere from 18 in Byfield's case to 23 at the oldest. Wah and Bjorn Foote are expected to take the second pairing D by themselves without a veteran player to help them out. And it'd be very interesting to see how do they do without that veteran backbone to help them. I also have Turcotte here, who could very well push his way into the lineup, is a very highly touted prospect, almost around the same level as Velarde, I would say. But I don't know if he's quite there yet. I don't think so. I think one more year in the minors for Turcotte would be good for him, and then he could be in the NHL next year. But they need to probably trade out a Brown or a Carter, like I was saying. Look at the deadline for them to be gone, and then guys like Turcotte to get called up to the NHL. And then last person on the rookies finally is Fagemo. I honestly have never heard of him, but when I was looking up the lines they had him on the third line, which I'm guessing that's what they had in training camp. I don't think he makes the lineup, though. I think that they're just experimenting with the lines to see what'll work best. But if Fagemo makes the lineup, that's another rookie to add to it. And there's a real chance that any one of these rookies can make the lineup. And even if they make trades, there could be 11 rookies on this team, which would be insane to see. Going on to your top 3 forwards, I have Kopitar and Velarde kind of tied for the leading point scorer. But they're both estimates. I would probably say it's more likely that Kopitar would score over this than it would be Velarde, though. Kopitar, I said he'll get 15 goals, 35 assists for 50 points. Very reasonable for him. Not much of a drop off from last year. If anything, actually, I think it's around what he scored at last year at that pace. But he's older and he could play a little bit worse, or he could get better talent around him, and the team doesn't have to be the Kopitar show, and he could play up and maybe get point a game again in his career. Velarde, I also have at 50 points, but this one, a few more goals, 20 goals, 30 assists for 50 points. And I'm taking a huge shot here to say that Velarde will be a 50-point scorer in his rookie year. And I could see him being a dark horse for the Calder Trophy. And as a Ranger fan, I would hate to see that when we have probably K'Andre Miller, Igor Shesterkin, and Alexei Lafreniere all competing for the Calder, but Velarde's a dark horse, and nobody's really talking about him to win the Calder. So look out for Velarde, I would say. And then I have Iafallo on third, playing with Kopitar. 10 goals, 30 assists, 40 points. I think that's very reasonable for him. It's a slight bump up from the pace that he scored at last year, but he's still young and he's getting better. So to expect him to get better isn't that far stretched. Cal Peterson, like I said, for the most part, he won't play that many more games than Jonathan Quick. I have 30 games played in a 56-game schedule. I give him a 2.8 goals against and a 910 save percentage. And the 910 save percentage might sound like it's not that good, but you have to remember the defense that he's playing in front of, where you have Ali Mata on your top pairing and a declining Kopitar, and a declining Doughty, who hopefully could stay in top 2 defenseman form this season, but if his trend continues, he might not. But looking at the whole lineup, it's a very unpredictable lineup, and honestly, they could really go anywhere in the standings. But if I were to predict where they would end up, I could see them going anywhere from 4th to 8th in the West. So if they do make the playoffs, they'll barely squeak in. But they are in an unfortunate situation where there are 3 powerhouses in the division and then everyone else. So the spots that really aren't up for grabs at all, Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis. Those spots are pretty securely their spots as the top 3. And I don't really see that shaking up at all. But if anyone can push them out, a team with 11 rookies might just be the team that can end up being a surprise and ending up in the top of the division. But I'd be very interested to see what you guys think. Leave a comment and tell me what I'm wrong or right about. And leave the video a like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.